Okay, so Bootstrap, you remember CSS, right? So CSS is essentially styling your web application, right? You have HTML, it's content, it's structure, but it's not really pretty. It's white background, black text, not very beauty. So with Bootstrap, with CSS, we got to give some color, some styling, using Flexbox to lay it out our content in the page in a better way. The problem with CSS is that it became really hard to work, especially for big teams, right? You have more than 3 engineers working on an application. It's pretty common if you're going through CSS route to have very different, like you will give when you give a portion of the website to a person, and then another portion of the website to another person, to have very different views. Even if you have the same design, not all the engineers implement the same way, the same design. So it's really hard to maintain when you're working with CSS. So only really big companies go the CSS route, right? And even so, most of them basically create something like Bootstrap. And that's what happened at Twitter probably more than 15 years ago, because it's really old, Bootstrap. So they essentially created a pre-made CSS style sheet that had everything we need to create any app, right? That's what they tried to do. And somehow they managed to build something that it was easier to just install it in your page and just use the classes that they provide, and you will have something that already have some look and feel. So Bootstrap is essentially a CSS style sheet or a pre-made, right? And it divides the classes in different sections. You have classes for layout, and you have classes for content, and you have classes for components. Actually, content should be components. And you have helper classes. So you have component classes and layout classes, right? So you see, this is exactly everything you need in terms of styling an app. You need layouts to be able to organize your content. You need components because your content is actually components like buttons, inputs, tables, etc. And then helper classes to allow you to give you some freedom of modifying how these things look, right? So let me give you an example of how Bootstrap works, right? So the first thing that you have is layouts. And for that you have a couple of classes, mostly container, right? So it's class-based. Everything is a class. You have to use the classes that they provide. One of those classes is container. Container, you can create a div with class container. And that means that everything in your app will be inside that container, right? There's 2 types of container. It's container and container fluid. That's the other container type. Container fluid uses the whole width of the screen. Container uses only a small portion in the center, right? And that's already solved for you because you only have, if you think about it and you remember how web works, you only have 2 types of pages. The pages that use the whole width of the screen, or you see pages that only use a small portion of the screen, right? So you have that. You have containers. Now inside containers, you can only put this type of class. You can put rows. So a row is essentially a section of information, right? And every row is divided in 12 slots or columns, whatever you want to call it, right? So let me just draw this. So you have your page. Let's say this is your browser, your page. And then inside that you have a container, right? The container uses a specific portion of your web page. Let's say it uses this portion. Okay, so that's your container. Now inside the container, everything you have are rows. Let's say I have a row here, and I have another row, and another row, and another row. So you can have as many rows as you want, right? Yes?
You do one row, so let's assume the whole page, and as you add more, divide it equally?
No. You can have as many rows, and they will divide differently, right? Let me explain that. So every row will be divided in 12 columns or 12 slots. And then you can organize your content in columns using as many columns, as many slots as you want, right? Let's say you want to create a full 12 slots column, right? So you will create a column with 12 slots, right? Now, in the second row, you will use 4 and 8. That means that you have 4, kind of, and 8. Now, let's make this distinction clear. So these are columns. Okay. So, again, container, rows, columns. And inside the columns, you can put anything you want, right? You can put buttons, you can put tables, you can put paragraphs, you can put anything. But it should always be organized like that. If you broke that relationship, container, row, column, then everything gets messed in the page, right? Now, you can have as many rows as you want, right? I have 1 row, 2 rows, but inside my rows, I can only put columns. So let me just write the classes right here. So this is the container, right? Let me make it smaller. So this is the container. Now, the second one that you see there is the row. And this one over here is the column. Okay? So container is the whole, sometimes it's the whole page. You can have multiple containers, right? In the page, in the body of your page should be only containers. And inside the containers, you can put rows. And inside the rows, you can put columns. And inside the columns, you can put anything, right? So this is a column, and this is a column. Again, the green ones is a row.
For your code to match that, you have to write rows 4 times.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry?
For your code to match what you have on screen.
Yeah, I have 2 more rows. Yeah, I have. Yeah, I have.
If you wrote it once, what would that page look like?
Sorry, repeat again the
In
question?
your div code, right? In your div class, if you only wrote 1 row,
Mhm.
only,
If I want to convert, let me take this into code, right? So I will have 1 div class container, and that div will wrap everything. Now inside that div, how many rows do I have?
this example 4.
Well, I removed 2, so let's make it. Well, I have 4. Okay, but I don't need to put a row if I'm not going to put columns
Right.
inside, so I might as well
That's my
delete.
question. What would happen if you don't include the
Yeah,
rows?
don't just
So if you
remove.
make row 1 and
No.
2
The
bigger,
rows are
Are they predefined, like
No, they don't have any height. They only have the height of anything that the thing that
Elements inside.
exactly.
Oh, okay, so it's kind of like a flat book.
Yeah, exactly. So in this case, I have two rows. One,
Then the column inside.
okay, and two.
But the only exception would be, and I think what you're talking about is that you actually use a column definition in terms of 4. Because once you get to 12, it may be in the same row, it's still gonna keep the second row.
Right.
Without changing into an actual second div class row.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a different. Yeah, good, good. Okay, so right now we have this one container, 2 rows, right? And then inside the first row, I have a column. And inside that column, I have nothing, so I will put it like this. Now, the second row has 2 columns, and actually I will copy this. So 1 column, 2 columns. But these columns are weighted. That means that it has 4 slots, and the second one has 8 slots. So I can put -4, -8. And those are the 12 slots, right? And I can create any combination of 12, right? I can say 2, 8, 2, or I can say 4, 4, 4, or I can say 3, 3, 3, 3, right? It adds to 12. Make sense? So that's the way we organize, we lay it out using columns and rows and columns. Okay? Now, sorry, what's your name again? Mike, yeah. Tom. So what Tom was saying is, what happens if we add another column here, intentionally or by mistake, doesn't matter, with 4 columns, 4 slots? What do you think will happen in this case?
It wraps.
Exactly, it will wrap. So that means that this row will become a little bit higher. Oops. And then I will have another column of 4 right here. Okay? So that's what happens when you have more than the amount of columns in the same, right? By the way, if you put col 4, 7, and 4, that means that this one over here will be slightly smaller, but because the other one doesn't fit there, you put it below, right? Because it's 4, it's not 1, right? If I say col 1, then this one will be over here. But because I said 4, it will be in the same row, but below the other ones. Make sense? Cool. So that's what we use for, that's the concept that we use for responsive websites. Because in responsive websites, these columns, you can basically establish that, okay, this is only for small devices. Let's say this is for larger devices, right? So we have 4 and 8 for larger devices, but in a small device, we might say, okay, in a small device, this is 12. And in a small device, this is 12. That means that if I am opening the same page in a mobile, then these 2 columns will be 12, and the other one will be also 12. Right? And they will be both like this. So that's the way they will look in a mobile device. But if they're in a larger device, then it will be 4 and 8. So things get reorganized in a mobile, right? So that's what Bootstrap is. Now, the other thing that you have in Bootstrap is components. So components could be, there are many types of components that we can use. And, oh wow. I think the most common, like the first component that you go see is the button component. And for that we have the BTN class. So we have BTN. Basically this creates a button, and BTN success makes it like green, right? Because it's a button for a successful operation. It could be BTN danger, and that's a red button, maybe to delete something because it denotes like a dangerous operation. So those are part of Bootstrap documentation. And the way you can go to Bootstrap and you will see all the components there. You see all the layout classes should be here. And you have also components for forms. You have components like, for example, alerts, right? You want an alert like this, you can just copy the code, paste it, that's it. And you see the classes here, alert, alert primary, right? This is the one. If you want a dangerous alert, alert, alert danger. That's the red one. You have buttons, you see, these are the buttons. So, yeah, exactly. You don't remember. You just go to Bootstrap and you copy and paste whatever you need, right? So, for example, this is a car component somewhere. This is a car, right? It's like a beautiful, organized way, a way to organize something. And you see that it's class car, and then inside you have a car body, and inside you have a car title, and you have car text. So when you use those classes in the way they specify, you have something that is already beautiful and organized, right? There's a bunch of them here. Like, for example, drop-downs are really nice. You see? These are nicer than the regular selectors. Badges, there you go. Models, these are really important. You see, like, show. The thing is that there is no HTML equivalent for something like this, right? This is a pretty common interface in most web applications. A modal. A modal means everything stops, the rest of the application is out of focus, and we only need you to answer this, right? Show you some information where you have to add or give me some input, right? But the rest of the application is no longer usable. You have to focus on this, right? That's what a modal is.
How we connect a button to open a modal?
Just follow the example. That's the code there. You see, this is the button to make the model work, and this is the model itself, right? You can copy the example, and that's how it works.
Where I get confused is styling the stuff inside the Bootstrap.
That's the beautiful part of Bootstrap. You don't have to worry about styling anymore. As long as you use their classes, everything should look standardized somehow, right? And you don't have to worry about how they look, because that's solved for you. That's why using Bootstrap is more productive than using CSS. One common thing that you will see throughout your programming career is that most of the things that we use are meant to be productive, right? If you are using CSS directly by yourself, it will take you a lot of time to make a website look like this. This is built with Bootstrap, by the way. Everything that you see in this page is built with Bootstrap. So imagine building this whole website with Bootstrap. It's really hard, right? But with Bootstrap, you don't have to worry about that. It will look the way it will look as long as you use the classes that they provide. You don't have to worry about, oh, this button is 2 pixels more here. No. You don't have to think about that anymore. You just say, for example, for a button, oh, I need a danger button. You just put button, BTN danger, that's it. That's all you care about. It should look like a dangerous button. That's all. You see where I'm going? It's like you don't care about how it looks. I mean, it looks good,
It's consistency.
but it's exactly. It's consistent throughout the web application.
Yeah, but maybe you want to move that button to another space in the page.
Yeah, for that.
And separate that button from the other components of the.
Yeah. For that you have the helper classes. So helper classes allow you to make different changes, like utilities, I think. So you have utilities for flex, for example. Implement flex behaviors. That when you want to go a little bit outside of the common path of Bootstrap, you have these classes. And it basically allows you to basically implement anything, but without adding CSS. So once you are using Bootstrap, you don't have to touch CSS anymore. That you don't have to actually edit CSS file. That's all. That's Bootstrap, right?
Every modification that we make in every component should be inside the class. I mean,
Wait, repeat the question.
for example, if I want to put that button, well, the color is danger, but I want to add a padding or whatever.
That's the point. That's what I'm trying to say. No, you don't have to worry about that again. No. Because, for example, you have a button, right? But what if I want to make it a little bit bigger? Oh, there is in buttons, right? There is something called sizes, and there is a larger button. That's it. That's all you care. It's not that you want to modify. Like if you see yourself trying to change the padding of a button, then you are stepping out of the way of Bootstrap, right? You shouldn't be caring about that, because that's technically it's not your job to decide what's the padding of a button. Your job is to make the button work. You see where I'm going? There is another group of engineers just focusing on making the button look good, right? Your job is to make it work. And of course, there are companies where they don't have that group of engineers that make it pretty, so they use Bootstrap. And whatever Bootstrap shows up, that's it. Actually, when Bootstrap came out, every other website was the same, because everybody was using the same Bootstrap library. And I mean, you probably remember this. It was a time, 10 years ago, probably 12 years ago, every website looked the same because they were using Bootstrap. Now, because that model result is pretty common and pretty, you have things like this. You have things like Tailwind. That, by the way, I recommend that you at least take a look at it. And it's kind of like the same concept, just using classes. It's just that Tailwind is a little bit more modular and extensible. But it's exactly the same. You see, this is the HTML. That's code on the left. And now I'm just adding styles, and everything starts to change. I'm not touching CSS, you see? It's just in the HTML, I'm adding classes, and everything starts to reorganize based on those classes, right? Same concept. There is Tailwind, there is material. This is pretty common as well. You see how they look. This is kind of like the Android look. If you see in an Android phone, this is pretty much what the app or the UI look like in an Android phone. You have the one for Microsoft UI Kit. I don't remember. I don't remember what's the WinUI. Oh, awful. What else? We have Chakra.
They're all just basically pre-built styles.
Pre-built styles, exactly. This is pretty cool, by the way.
Whichever one you want to go for.
Exactly. You can choose whatever you want. We teach Bootstrap because it's the root. Everything started there. But you see, this is another one. It's just another another UI kit. Chakra. What's the other one that is really famous? Oh, Blueprint. So yeah, same thing. You have components, you have, like, usually the way you identify it is by the button. When you see a button, when you see a Bootstrap button, oh, you know, oh, that's Bootstrap, right? When you see a Material UI button, oh, that's Material UI. For example, this is the button for this one. If you ever worked with this is from a company, and by the way this works is that big companies, like really big companies, create them and make them open source, so a lot of people can use them and contribute to them. So it's kind of cheap for them to make an open source, right? So for example, Blueprint is made by Palantir. It's like a data scientist company. So yeah, it's pretty data-oriented UI kit. Like there's a ton of them, basically.
How big is the Bootstrap file? How many lines of code?
It's a lot. It's really big. Like if you want to see, actually, let's see it. In
That's a lot of.
yeah, actually.
In there, no? That would be like 100,000 lines or something.
Oh, it doesn't say sizes here. Yeah, you can download it.
Open up the
Actually, here.
the link. Yeah. That says mini, so it doesn't have everything.
Okay, this is the mini 5 version. Not that big, actually. It's probably a couple kilobytes of CSS. Like this is, if you read it, it's essentially CSS, right?
Does the min have less things in it?
Sorry, what?
Does the min version have less things in it?
No, it's just compacted. This min version is,
And all that's in there, that?
yeah.
I would expect it to be a lot bigger.
Yeah, so it's that basically. It's just a CSS pre-made bundle of all the classes that you need. We're gonna use this in the program most of the time. If you feel confident enough and you want to try another one, let me know. I will definitely recommend Tailwind. It's kind of like the CSS kit that most companies are using now, right?
The class names are different.
Yeah, of course, they are totally different. Tailwind CSS. Don't go for it right now, but at least make a note and read it when you have some time. Yeah, so that's Bootstrap in a nutshell. We're gonna use it for the rest of the program, so it's not that we need to keep going at it now. But yeah, questions about Bootstrap? Questions? No, I know you have a project probably.
Instagram with Bootstrap.
Oh, build the same Instagram? Nice. Cool. Well, you have time because there's no project today.
When I put the links in, it's not connecting.
The what?
The links to connect Bootstrap to my.
Oh, it's a way to install it. You see, get started. You follow the Kickstart, and you essentially need to add this to your, and this two. Or you can use this, well, if you have a ready web app made, you need to copy these two lines.
Okay, so that's a good question. Why do you need the JavaScript one?
Some parts of Bootstrap need JavaScript.
Kind of like that
The model, yeah.
the model they
Yeah.
showed,
For example, some,
So it's always good to include both.
yeah, definitely.
Now that one, why is the JavaScript at the bottom and not on the top is in the header?
Yeah, it's this. The meaning is the reason is this type of JavaScript is added at the end of the file, basically because that JavaScript changes the behavior of things on the page, and you want those things to be already on the page. Because the
Okay, so
browser,
it's like a linear.
yeah, exactly. The browsers read the page from top to bottom, and as soon as they see a div, they will put it on the page, right? That's why you see pages that are rendering from top to bottom. And then when it gets to the end, it will load the JavaScript. But at that point, the whole page is already there. And that JavaScript will make some changes on like put some buttons to work, essentially. So that will work. Yeah, cool. That's all for Bootstrap.